let's dive into the third misconception. The API is full of Drupalisms. What do you have to say about that in regards with the
I
Drupal's
will
API?
say probably yes. And well, and it is, Drupal out of the box came with JSON API,
Mhm.
and the way the JSON API exposed data and nested elements and relations. When you try to use that, you'll see all of Drupalisms embedded, like related entity and naming convention and things like that. And as a front end developer, that language is probably way too verbose. It's full of
Mm,
Drupal specific context. It's it's complicated, and somehow as a front end developer, you need to understand how Drupal it's built somehow, right?
mm,
Kind of
yeah.
take you into that direction. And it also, I mean, it's not probably that simple to configure.
Mm,
And again, querying data, it's a little more complicated than it should because you have to like include this with those fields, things like that. Think about like the way it serves you data, it's more complicated that it should. And
yeah.
again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a spec and that's how it works. It's just somehow again force you as a front-end developer to understand more about Drupal than you probably should.
Yeah, of course. But actually, there's also a solution to it, like GraphQL. Maybe it maybe can help with a lot of these things that you are talking about. How does GraphQL simplify API management?
Well, the way the GraphQL module it's built, it was with that, I mean, idea on mind, trying to remove some of the Drupalisms on the
Mm,
API. And used to be clear, GraphQL version 4, it's different than version 3. Version 3 out of the box expose data from Drupal.
mhm,
And the way that was exposed, it was with some of those Drupalisms. And
mm,
once version 4 came out, didn't expose any no data at all. It's just like the foundations for building something. And this is when the GraphQL Compose module it born and allowed you to simplify that process, remove some of these Drupalisms on the naming convention, on the how objects are related to between each other, and how this simplify management. Well, GraphQL provided with a single endpoint. It's easier to write queries because you have like autocomplete, like out of the box on the playground inside Drupal. It provides you with a area that you can start clicking around in typing things. It also it's fully typed
mm.
and self-documented. So it means you can on your VS Code, you can also have this autocomplete. Think about like TypeScript for your queries.
Okay.
And it uses a single fetch for requesting things. So you can request like nested data on a single request. So you don't have to like work around those things like get this resource, then with those IDs, give me this other resource or this other pieces of content that belong to a different, content type or piece of content, whatever. So I mean, there's also workarounds for JSON API. What I want to mention is out of the box. That's how GraphQL works, and it means like it's easier for front end people to use GraphQL because they already know how GraphQL works. There's an spec as
Yeah.
well, so people outside of the Drupal world already know how to use GraphQL.
Yeah, so maybe it's easier for someone that actually it's like an expert in front end, modern front end technologies, uh, like to onboard him on a project or onboard them on a project because they already have this expertise and they don't have to understand all of these Drupalisms or all of these Drupal contexts, no?
Yeah. Maybe they
Yeah,
already use GraphQL in some other like links, in some other like CMS like Contentful, Sanity, or any of the others.
right. Yeah. And that's why we are using GraphQL with the project of Drupal Decoupled, no? To make life easier for front end developers. Is there any other practical benefit for using GraphQL?
You can say probably well you can improve the time to market when building, and therefore
Mm,
reduce the cost because again you can
yeah.
onboard people, you can onboard like specialized people on front end. They don't have to worry about knowing, front end how Drupal do the front end or API how Drupal do the API. It's just more like you can hire specialized, team members.
Right. Yeah, and that makes life easier for the company, less costly, as you said, faster implementation, and also it accelerates
And
time to market.
and you can have that people involved in different projects other than Drupal projects, right? Because an
Exactly.
agency, sometimes you have different clients with different needs, and Drupal is not always the answer for them.
Yeah, it varies on the project.